Welcome back to JKPRising. A couple weeks ago, I uploaded a video talking about how Dead Space 4 might have been confirmed, and I also uploaded a video the next day where I talked about how that article might have been fake. There was a couple bit of misinformation where they talked about some people that were still at Visceral, which were actually not at Visceral Games. So that article could be fake. We're not exactly sure, but they did say a couple of things in there that I thought were pretty interesting that I wanted to expand upon in future videos, like this one. So today we're going to talk about the new line of Necromorphs that was mentioned in that article, and we're going to talk about what exactly that means. So what you're seeing on the screen right now are cut enemies from the first Dead Space game. The reason why they were cut was because Visceral Games wanted to go for a more human, zombie, decaying, more realistic type of enemy, because that's how they got inspired from their Necromorphs. They were actually people in like car accidents that were all dismembered and mangled up, and that's where a lot of the inspiration for the Necromorphs came from. So having insect-like Necromorphs wouldn't necessarily fit that human connection that they wanted in Dead Space 1. This Necromorph was called the Commander. It was going to act similar to the Brute that we encountered in the first Dead Space game and act like a mini boss. Its name is the Commander, so we can only assume it would command Necromorphs, call in Necromorphs for more help. Those appendages kind of remind me of the Guardians, which are those big blobby things on the walls with all those tentacles, but this one looks way more versatile. This next Necromorph is called the Swinger, but it was later scrapped because there were too many climbing Necromorphs, and it was later replaced with the Leaper. Here's another finalized look of the Necromorph just before it was cut. This next enemy was called the Flytrap, and it was actually going to appear in Dead Space 2, but was cut. It was intended to act as a standard enemy as well as an environmental hazard. It was designed to lure in the player from a certain location and attack them when they were within the proximity, similar to like a Guardian. Here are some more concepts of that Necromorph, so very creepy. This next Necromorph was called the Grave Robber and was going to appear in the animated film Dead Space Downfall, but because of time constraints they had to cut it. This Necromorph would find dead bodies, devour them within seconds, then add it to its biomass, hence the name Grave Robber. Now the Grave Robber Necromorph did match what Dead Space 1 was going for, which was a more human-like enemy, but the other Necromorphs I showed you, like the Commander and Swinger, and even the Flytrap, were very insect-like, and if we look at enemies in Dead Space 3, like the Nexus, that's very insect-like too. As the series evolved from Dead Space 1, 2, and 3, we got a transition of Necromorphs. The first game was very human-like, like the developers wanted. The second game was an enhancement of Dead Space 1, but Dead Space 3 was a big jump in a different direction, with a more alien-like Necromorphs that we were introduced to, and the Nexus, as I mentioned before, these enemies were more insect-like, like the original counterparts like the Swinger and Commander that were cut from the first game. So maybe Dead Space 4 we could see a return to roots, which would mean a return to a more insect-like enemy faction, along with a human-like faction. This is actually drawn by a fan of Dead Space, and it's a Tyrannosaurus Rex Necromorph that is fighting Isaac Clarke. That's pretty awesome. I am really bad at drawing, so I always appreciate someone that can draw. What do you guys think? What kind of Necromorphs would you like to see in Dead Space 4? Would you want to see more insect-like, more alien-like, more human-like, all three, something else? Let me know in the comments below. For Dead Space content, subscribe to JKPRising. If you liked anything I had to say, please remember to give a like on the video, and I'll see you all next time.